Welcome to Midnight Chow. Today we have a very special guest, Max Bloom of the Scuttlebutt Show. Max, how you doing?
What's up, Kyle? It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. You are my first, you're the first person to have me on their show as a guest.
Great. It's an honor to be your first interview. So let's get started with what got you into the military in the first place?
Oh, man. Okay. So great question. And it's not such a crazy story or anything like that. Like, I was a very average person in high school, like average student or below average, probably average athlete. I enjoyed sports and all that. And I was, patriotic enough, but I never pictured myself as somebody who would join the military or anything. And this is even after 9/11, I still thought, even though I'm from upstate New York, I'm from Poughkeepsie, New York, obviously, touched personally by the events of 9/11, still didn't see myself joining the military until we graduated high school. One of my best friends, who I spent a lot of time with, we would play video games together, we would hang out together on the weekends, all of that. His whole family was Marines. And he knew from the day I met him in like middle school that he was going to join the Marines. And we graduated high school. We were in the same grade. We graduate high school. He leaves for boot camp like a week later. And when he came back, and I had like this idea stirring in my head of like, I don't want to be in college. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Maybe the military would be good for me. He comes back from boot camp and I saw kind of like the transformation and what he had been doing and how motivated he was and everything. And I went like immediately to the Marine Corps recruiter's office, but they were not in the office. They were out of the office. So the Navy guy, can I curse on the show?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the fucking Navy guy, pokes his head out of the door and he's like, "You here for the Marine Corps?" And I was like, "Yep." He goes, you can wait in our office until they get back. And I was signing papers with the Navy that same day. That's what I love America. Like I said, I'm patriotic. I just never saw the military as something for me. I never thought of myself as a military type person, like a military type personality or whatever. But it was just kind of like being inspired by a friend. And then, having that kind of whatever it is inside you, that kind of call that some people just have to go do something, I just had that and I just went and did it.
And you, how many times did you end up re-enlisting?
Ooh, let me think about this. Cause I extended multiple times. So I re-enlisted once at 4 years. Then I re-enlisted at 9 years. And then I extended again. So I got out at about 14 years. So I did 3 enlistments with 2 extensions.
Let's talk about your basic training. What was Navy basic training like?
Well, do you know anything about Navy basic training?
No, my uncle was an F-18 pilot, but he had to go to Marine basic training.
Oh yeah, right. So Navy basic training is up in Great Lakes, Illinois, like Chicago, Illinois. And I went through in 2004. So there was still the old Navy boot camp at this point, because they redid it in like 2006 or something. So it was still the old Navy boot camp where, it had been one way for, however many decades. And I was lucky enough to get to go through it, back when it was still, you still had to walk to different buildings, because now it's all Navy boot camp is in one building. So basically you eat, sleep, train all in one building, and you only leave to go practice marching or whatever. And so you like never leave the barracks basically, which is pretty lame. But I went through when you still had to go march around, everything like that. And boot camp was not, I was like the gray man, I guess. Like I kind of coasted through. I pretty much stayed out of trouble, and I had one cool job. So in the Navy, in boot camp, you have like collateral duties. You can be male PO. You can be in charge of cleaning the barracks. You can be in charge of marching. You can be the like division leader. You guys probably had something like that in the Army, some similar stuff.
Yeah. I mean,
so like basically if you were in, let's say you were in charge of the mail, for example, you would get to leave kind of on your own and go pick up mail and then walk. You would like be able to walk by yourself to get the mail and walk back.
But you didn't do anything by yourself in Army basic.
Okay. So in Navy basic, there was a couple jobs where you kind of got to spend some alone time. And I got one of those because there was one particular like collateral job that was based off of ASVAB score. So if you got a good ASVAB score, you could be on what's called ship staff, which meant that you could go stand watch out for like the building. Because inside the building, there would be 6 barracks, like 6 divisions. And then the building had a quarterdeck. So you could go be the building quarterdeck person if you were ship staff. So I got to do that. And that got me out of a lot of like, probably a lot of the annoying stuff that you would do in boot camp, because I would get to go stand outside by myself. I could kind of skate a little bit when I was doing my ship staff stuff. It was a good excuse to kind of get out of there. But I was sick. Like I was sick for all of boot camp. For 9 weeks, I was like, I had like the flu or whatever. And it was horrible. I was just, they called me outbreak in boot camp because I was sick the entire time. That's like the one thing I remember above all else about a boot camp was just like, it didn't suck that bad. It wasn't that hard or anything. And I was very middle of the road, like person, but just being sick, like horribly sick the whole time.
Yeah, we went to like our first range. We marched out there in the rain, and I came back and I had pneumonia. So I missed the whole week of like shooting. So I got to go to pneumonia. I lost like 30 pounds over the course of a week, hallucinating, blacking out, throwing up blood, all this shit. And the first day back to the unit, they're like, okay, qualify. And they hand me back my gun, and the rear sight adjustment was rusted solid. It wouldn't cycle. It was bad. I barely passed basic.
That sucks, dude. That sounds like it's like you went through SEER school for a week or something. Just starving and losing weight.
Yeah, I would eat like an orange and immediately go run to the bathroom and throw it up.
Oh, geez.
When I got done with that week, I didn't recognize myself. I went from like 210 to about 160, 175 pounds.
Yeah, that's, one of the things about boot camp that kind of is difficult because it's your first experience with the military. It's like the shock to your system, but it teaches you a lot of valuable lessons, like no days off, for example. Like if you want to, the goal in boot camp, right? I think that everyone probably has is you finish with the same division or whatever that you start with. So in the Navy, we call them like divisions, whatever. If you start with a division, ideally you want to go do your 9 weeks and just be done. You don't want to do 2 of those weeks over again or something like that. So part of that is like, you'd better pass all the milestones and you'd better like not get too sick and just say, I'm too sick. I don't want to be here. Cause you can have a couple sick days or whatever, but if you have too many, you get, rolled back or whatever. So the whole time I was thinking like, I just have to survive no matter how sick I am until boot camp is over. Because I don't want to be here any longer than I have to. And that kind of is like a good lesson that carries on throughout the military, especially on deployment where no one gives a shit if you're sick or shitting yourself or whatever. There's no days off.
Right.
Yeah, boot camp was fun.
I can take as long a pause as I want because I edit this.
Yeah, no, all good.
Yeah, I'll cut most of me talking and telling stories, but I just like to keep the conversation going. Yeah, I barely passed basic training. They had the 3 PT tests, and you had to pass one of them. And I was so weak when I got back from having pneumonia that I could barely do like 10 push-ups. You know what I mean? And I like halfway through basic, I had to start all over like I would just got there again. I had like an inhaler and stuff. It was bad. Like, cause I failed all the first 3 PT tests, and then they had a special one. The unit was out in the field. So I was already out in the field and had to road march all the way back the night before. And then they wake you up to do a PT test, and I squeaked past. Oh man, that was rough.
So,
basic was not that fun for me.
So in Navy boot camp, you have this final PT test, and the Navy PT test, it's changing now, but it's always been pretty easy. You do a certain number of sit-ups, like the minimum or whatever. I think it was like 6, like the number that you could always pass with was 60 or whatever. It's like, no matter how old you are, if you're a guy or a girl, it doesn't matter. If you can do 60, you're good, right? So
60,
you had to do at
60,
least
60 in a 15-minute 2 mile.
Well, it was a mile and a half for us. So it was a 12-minute mile and a half. So basically a 16-minute 2 mile or whatever. That would, extrapolate out to a 16-minute 2 mile. So you had 60, 60 and a mile and a half in 12 or less. And you were good. You were always golden if you could make those standards. The last PT test in boot camp, you get one chance. And if you fail it, they roll you back to the class before or whatever, 2 weeks. And it was also like the pinnacle of my sickness. And I remember doing this PT test. I never have thought I was going to literally die running a mile and a half, but I'm on like the last lap of this thing. And I must have had a really like horrible look on my face, because we call it our drill instructors, recruit division commanders, starts running with me. He's like, come on, Bloom. And I'm like, coughing. And I remember I like tunnel vision. And as soon as I passed the finish line at like 11:57 or something, I like puked on the ground. And one of the cadre that worked at the gym comes up. He's like, did you just puke on my floor? Roll around in it and clean it up or something like that. And I was like, okay. And then my RDC was like, wait, can't you see this dude's fucking dying? Like, he's got to go to medical, So they took me to medical, and I had like 104-degree fever, and I was just like in a crisis. And so they laid me up in medical for a while, and I spent like a day on meds, like antibiotics. And then you go into the final event, which is called Battle Stations. And it's like this 24-hour, basically like scenario where you go through all these evolutions that it's kind of like a no fail unless you quit type thing. And all you have to do is just hang on and move through from evolution to evolution. At the end, you get your Navy cap. They give you your Navy hat instead of recruit.
And we got our berets. Yeah, and then they took away the beret while we were in Afghanistan. So we came back and we were just wearing the baseball caps again.
Mm-hmm. I can't keep track with how many berets the Army has now. I feel like they got a bunch, like red berets, black berets.
Your maroon beret is your airborne. The original Ranger beret was black, and you got your green berets. And then they made the entire Army black beret, and they gave the Rangers the tan beret. And I always thought it should have been the opposite. The Rangers should have kept the black one, and the regular Army should have been the tan one, because in formation, the tan beret looks a lot better than a black one. On the ACU, that, the light green uniform we had.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just me.
Yeah. Personal preference.
Yeah.
I think
berets are dumb anyways.
I think I can remember like the formal Army photo of Pat Tillman and his tan beret.
Yeah.
I think that's like where if I think of like the tan beret, that's the picture that comes to mind, is Pat Tillman wearing a tan beret in his like famous photo.
Yeah, there was that MWR. I want to say it was in Bagram when you first like in process into Bagram. It's like off to the left of the in processing tent, and it's the Pat Tillman MWR. Did you ever go to that one?
Yep.
It's like a 2-story, like a split level sort of deal.
I don't remember. I know what you're talking about. I don't remember it specifically too well, because I just remember like landing in Afghanistan and landing in Iraq were like very similar, where you land and you're like, I'm in fucking Afghanistan. But then you just like walk unarmed into like this tent, and they're like giving you briefs. And I'm like, what is this? This isn't what I was expecting. You know what I mean? Like, you're in an airport. It's nice. You know, it's like this is
a civilian female in civilian clothes is giving you a lecture on like ComSec or something. You're like, what am I doing here?
Yeah. And they're like, while you'll be staying with us at Bagram, there's a McDonald's and there's a Dragon DFAC and this DFAC and the gym's here and there's MWR over here. And okay, cool.
People don't realize how long it actually takes to get to where you're going when you deploy. Mm-hmm. It was almost a month to get from Colorado to Cop Keating. Because
Oh
everywhere
yeah.
we'd stop, we'd stay for like a week. It's
Yep.
Manus to Bagram to Jaff to Bostic to Keating. You just get
Yeah, man.
smaller and smaller aircraft as you go.
When we get to deployments, I can talk about like flying to deployment and how much of a mind fuck that is when you stop in Spain or Germany and you're like partying. I don't know if you guys had that experience, but like for us with NSW, it was like, okay, guys, we're going to war or whatever, and then you take off and you land. We landed in like Morón Air Force Base, Spain, and partied for a week hard between Morón and Rota, and I'm like, yeah, this is it, man. This is deployment.
When we went to, okay, you've been to Manus, right?
Yeah.
We'd sit there. We deployed with like a group of Marines, and they're just like slamming beers and partying. And our colonel and sergeant major are like, if I see any of you having a drink, I'm fucking your entire unit up. So we would just sit there.
Yeah.
Smoke cigarettes all day long. What was your first duty station or ship?
Yeah. So yeah, duty station ship. We do call it duty station in the Navy. My first duty station was the USS Ronald Reagan. So it was like the Navy's newest aircraft carrier. Had never been deployed before. It had just left Virginia Beach. So after boot camp. By the way, I joined the Navy.
Channel do a show on the Ronald Reagan? I watched that.
Yes, you can go watch that. Yep, that was.
You were on the ship at the time?
That was before my time. That was when they went around the Horn or whatever of South America, and it was on their way to San Diego, I believe, is when they filmed that. So I got there when the ship got to San Diego. Okay. I joined the Navy like needs of the Navy. I joined the Navy with no job, so I could have gone anywhere, done anything. I ended up going into like aviation. And I got orders. I'm sorry?
That's a ballsy move.
I just wanted, so I had a fucked up childhood and I just wanted to get out of my, like, I just wanted, like, once I decided to join the military, I was like, well, just get me in the military. Like there's actually more to it than that, but I just wanted like the least resistance to me getting out of where I was from into boot camp and out to the fleet. Even though I had no idea what to expect, I was the guy who was like, I love the Navy. If I could enlist for 20 years, by the time I was ready to go to boot camp, I was like, yes, the Navy's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Never even like before boot camp, totally, Joe Navy all in, I was loving it. So I was like ready to go. I was like, I'll do anything. I just want to get, and when you join the Navy, a lot of people don't realize what the Navy is like. You think, well, you join the Navy, you just go out to sea for 4 years. Like, I didn't know what the fuck the Navy does. I was just like, I go on a boat, I go out to sea, I'll go out to sea for like 4 years. But it's actually like, there's so much on land stuff you can do. If you are on a ship, you go on deployment, you spend time in port, all this stuff. So my first duty station is the Ronald Reagan. And I get to the boat, and I'm checking in and they put me in like the berthing or whatever. I don't know anybody. I have no sponsor. They just give me a room on the ship. I got lost like very first thing on the ship. And I just like sat down on the ground and waited for somebody to come along because I could not find my way out of like this area in the ship I got myself into. And I was like, I better just stop because I'm going to fucking break something or get myself in trouble. So I waited and I'm like, I need some help, dude. I need to get to the hangar bay. If you can get me to the hangar bay, you'd be my hero right now. So
a modern super carrier is like the size of a small town on the inside, right?
So it's unbelievable. I actually think there's like some witchcraft that goes into how big these ships are, because quick like story about how big an aircraft carrier is. When I was working that first job that I had on the aircraft carrier doing aviation fuels or whatever, like fueling aircraft was my first job. And it was like the job that I just got assigned. I didn't pick it. They just, you get there and they're like, you three are going here, you three are going there. And I happen to get aviation fuels. So part of that job was you do this roving like watch on the ship. And you go to all these fuel stations and you make sure the pressures are good and that there's no leaks or anything. And one of the stations that we would check, you would be on the second deck, which is where the galley is, which is 2 below the hangar bay, 2 below the hangar bay. Then you would open a hatch on the ground and climb down 7 more ladders. You would climb down 7 decks. And when you got there, you were in a warehouse. You were in the bilge. You were in this giant warehouse, like being in a aircraft hangar or something. And it was just full of like fuel lines, and there was like water on the ground, and you would go in there and make sure nothing's leaking. And I'm like, where am I? I had no spatial awareness of how this could exist. And I'm in it under the water. You know what I mean? It's bigger than you can even imagine. It's humongous, gigantic. I was working in aviation fuels and I hated it. I fucking hated it. Like I didn't like the people I was working with. I didn't like the job. I felt like I wanted to do more, you know? And through like
fuelers are, yeah, our fueler at Bostic looked like Cro-Magnon man. It's not hard to get to be a fueler.
Well, it's one of, if not maybe the lowest standard qualification jobs you can get. Like you can have like a 20 on your ASVAB and you can be like a felon and you can be an aviation fueler in the Navy. So
what'd you get on your ASVAB?
I got a 95.
I got a 97. So, you're so dumb.
Yeah. So I got a 95 and I did well on the aptitude parts too. So I was able to, that's the thing. Like if you do well on the ASVAB, I don't know how it is in Army, but the Navy has like 1,000 fucking jobs. So they bring out this binder. It's like this huge, heavy, it's got like dust on it, book of every job in the Navy. And you're like, you can do any of these. So I was like kind of overwhelmed. And that's why I was like, I don't know, just what do you got? And they start telling me about this undesignated program, which the whole shtick with that thing is.
Oh, your recruiter lucked out. Your recruiter.
Oh yeah.
He was like.
No, I was definitely a recruiter's wet dream, dude, for sure. And so what they tell you is if you go in undesignated, you go to the fleet without a job, but then you get to see all the jobs and pick the one you want. So you get to like do kind of a, get the feelers and go around and, you can interview the people who are doing these other jobs. So do you want to be like a firefighter, or do you want to be like a quartermaster and steer the ship and all this stuff? And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. Like that way I don't have to make this big decision right now. I'll just go do like, be a grease monkey or whatever for a couple of years and then pick the job that I want. But that's the thing though. It's a trap and it doesn't really work out for a lot of people. Most people just stick with whatever they get because they get sucked into it. And the Navy makes it difficult to break out. So for me, only because of like a very, very coincidental chain of events that I was able to get a rate of AT, which was a total accident. The story behind that, I don't know it's a little bit of a long story if you want to hear it.
What is an AT?
So an AT is an aviation electronics technician, which is basically the person who works on the radars and the radios of an aircraft. So if it's a radar or a radio and all the associated equipment like wiring, antennas, boxes, computers, all that stuff, you work on that stuff. The displays inside of the aircraft, like the actual monitors, all the computer components of the aircraft is what an AT works on. So I'm on the ship. I end up getting this job, AT, where I go work in like a nice air conditioned room on these computer parts, and it's awesome. Like I'm living the life. I'm life of luxury now, right? And we go on deployment on the Reagan. We go on deployment, and as soon as the deployment starts, I got orders to go to A school, or like an actual school to get qualified as an AT. So I was on that deployment for a little over 3 months. We went to Hawaii, Australia, and I think that was and then Singapore, Hawaii, Australia, Singapore. This was 2006. And then we got to the Gulf. And when we got to the Gulf, I flew off the ship into Bahrain. And from Bahrain, I took a rotator west back to California. So from Bahrain, I flew to like England, Ireland, Germany. I mean, you name it. All those countries twice. Then to like the East Coast, Rhode Island or something. And then back to San Diego to go to my first initial training for AT.
So basically you get to do a deployment before you even go to AIT?
Yeah, because I was
actual like trade school in the Army is your AIT.
Right, AIT. This would be the Navy's version of AIT, but that's only because I joined undesignated, which means you go straight to the fleet. Like, do not
I don't even
stop.
think you can do that in the Army. I don't think there's any equivalent. Interesting. Yeah, you have to have something, and like I think if you don't have something picked out by the time you're done with basic, they'll pick something for you. There was one guy I think we had. They ended up sending him to like his MOS was laundry and textile specialist. And the drill sergeants were like, "This guy's so dumb, he's lucky to have it."
Well, so let me just add one piece of context there to that is there was one stop for training. It was 2 weeks long, and they teach you about what an aircraft carrier is. Like, hey, you guys are going to an aircraft carrier. Here's what it looks like. Here's what the procedure is for like getting on board and getting off, and good luck. And then they send you out. You don't learn any actual skills or anything, but from there you go to the fleet and you go onto the ship. You know nothing. You don't know what job you're going to do. You have no technical training whatsoever. So you get there.
On-the-job training is good training, and I bet you save the government a ton of money too.
Yeah, and it's the Navy, so it's not like, we're not getting shot at. It's pretty unlikely. So they assume that you pose very little risk to the crew by being basically untrained when you get there, and you get mentorship like OJT, and then you get familiar with your job.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's how it is. And like I said, for most people, it doesn't work out, but luckily just serendipity, a bunch of things happened, and I was lucky enough to get that job, AT.
So what was that your AT training like?
AT training was very nerdy. It was all math and electrical theory. So like Ohm's law and troubleshooting wires and relays and capacitors and stuff. So you would have to figure out like the voltage coming out of a series of transistors. And I don't even remember, dude. Honestly, I remember I equals E over R is Ohm's law. And that's about the best I can do to tell you my technical side of AT. So it's all math and electrical theory.
I've taken that similar class in college, and I hate that. Electricity, it's might as well be magic. You know what I mean? To me,
yeah,
like the whole circuits and stuff. I can like, you give me a mechanical system, like I can figure it out, like how each part interacts. But you start doing electricity, I'm just like,
yeah. So to get it's kind of funny. To get it promoted in the Navy, it's all based on a test. So you have to take this academic test, and that's it. If you get a certain score on the test, now your evals and your awards matter a little bit, but basically you have to get a minimum score on this test to even have a shot at promotion. And I would look at the test, and there would be all these pictures of like 10 watts, 20 ohms, 40 volts, A, B, C, or D. And I'm like, shit, dude, I don't know. 5 volts, I'm guessing. Just a total shot in the dark. Yep. It was just super random. So I didn't know. I did well in the school. Like it was actually self-paced computer learning for a lot of it. And I graduated really quickly because the math, like once I learned the formulas, no big deal. Like the math was no problem, but you never use that stuff again in your actual job. So once I had been out of school for 6 months or a year or whatever, working on helicopters is what I did next. I couldn't tell you the first thing about it.
Yeah, I've never used any of that shit either.
Yeah, but it was cool. I got to go to back to Chicago for a little while. I went to school in Chicago and San Diego. And then after finishing that school, I got orders to go to work on helicopters.
Where?
In San Diego. So everything I did in my career was in San Diego. So the squadron that I got assigned to was called HSC 23, Helicopter Sea Combat Squadron 23. It was pre-commissioned. So there was no aircraft. There was nothing. I was one of the first 20 people that was stationed there. So we are what's called plank owners, or we are the first crew to ever be a part of that squadron. All of us who were there, which is pretty cool. It's a little piece of naval history that we get to be a part of. And part of that in theory is if that squadron ever gets decommissioned, we'll all get a piece of a helicopter, like a bolt or a piece of metal or something like that. Just like if a ship gets decommissioned, you get a little piece of the ship if you're a plank owner on a ship.
Interesting.
So it's a fun little naval history thing.
What kind of helos were you working on?
Yeah, so they were Seahawks, or the Navy's version of Blackhawks, the same thing, 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So we had SH 60s.
Have you seen any anti-sub choppers or anything?
Yeah, anti-sub was a different specialty. So the Seahawks that we worked on were SAR and CSAR, and logistics was the mission. So search and rescue, combat search and rescue, or logistics, if anybody doesn't know what that is. And we worked with rescue swimmers, basically the Navy's version of PJs. And they would go either everything from delivering mail to rescuing people from shipwrecks, and that was a good time. So I was working on the actual aircraft, the radars, the computers, like I was saying, doing all that stuff. And then I went on my second deployment with that squadron.
Which was while you were in, did they was it a lot of the avionics going more digital from analog as you were in there?
Oh, that's actually a really good question. That's funny that you asked that, because that's actually great question. So the squadron that we were at, all the aircraft that we were getting, the 60 Sierras, were the first model to have what they were calling the glass cockpit, which means there were no individual instruments. There was only a computer monitor. So where normally there would be your altimeter, your horizon, all that stuff, your attitude indicator. See, I've been out of aviation for a while. Your attitude indicator, all that was all your vertical, your rate of climb, right? Your indicator was all mechanical instruments.
Yeah.
It went to all computer. So we were the first, we got some of the first 60 Sierras at the time that were all computer based. So that was cool for my job. It was, in a way it made it easier, because instead of having to remove all of these individual components, you could just troubleshoot digitally with error codes and stuff. But it was also a little bit trickier, because you had to start getting more savvy with computers, which I wasn't naturally. I had to learn all that.
The only reason I ask is the Blackhawks we flew on, I was surprised how much digital shit was on their readouts. As you sit in the back seat just watching them fly, and you watch the old movies and see the dials and the gauges and all that stuff. But there was 4 TVs.
Yeah. Yep, that's what it was. So you had four monitors. Even the guys in the back had tablets. Eventually, the crew chiefs had tablets, and they would be able to look at the map and everything, and communicate with the pilots and stuff. Yeah, everything went digital. So we were on the first systems that went all digital, which was pretty awesome.
Badass. Interesting.
It was cool to see. Yeah, it was fun.
Where'd you go after that?
So I did a deployment there, and that deployment was on another ship called a USNS, which was it was a United States naval ship ran by civilians from the Military Sea Lift Command, which was the Merchant Marines. So these guys are fucking pirates, basically. All of them are running from something. You know what I mean? These guys, they go to Merchant Marines, they get on the ship, they go out to sea for years. The way I said, I thought the Navy, you join the Navy and you go out to sea for years. These are guys who really do that. They just get on a ship and they disappear into the ocean to avoid probably warrants for, for 5-10 years at a time. And it was really cool. So we were the only 12 military members on board the ship with 2 helicopters. And we did a deployment out there, which was a lot of fun because we were hitting port like every week. We went to Hawaii, Singapore, Philippines, Guam, Bahrain, Fujairah, Dubai like 20 times. Man, you name it. We went everywhere on that deployment, and it was a blast.
One long party.
It was definitely a party cruise. And so just a shout out to, we lost a crew on that deployment. So not from our ship, but on the Bonhomme Richard, Bullet 10, we lost 4 of our shipmates out there. They went down in a crash. So it was our first month of deployment and we were doing flight ops, and flight ops ended early. None of us knew why. Our OIC, or officer in charge, came out and he's like, we just got word that one of the helos on the other deployment crashed and we're waiting to hear what happened. And so 4 of our crew from HSC 23 were killed. So that was a bummer when that happened. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Bullet 10.
Yeah.
January 26th, 2007. That's when that happened, I think. The date. So we had just left on that deployment. So that shook us all up a little bit. That was like, damn, 4 of our friends on this very small, tight-knit crew of people, all plank owners in this command. We're all going on the very first deployments for this command, like Det 1, Det 2, Det 3. So we were Det 2, they were Det 3. Det 1 had just deployed, and Det 3, one of their birds went down and crashed, and everyone was killed.
Did they determine what the cause was?
No, they never determined it. So they eventually salvaged the bird, but they never determined what the actual cause was.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that deployment was good. We got back from that deployment. We lost Bullet 10 on that one, which was crazy and pretty sad. We get back from that deployment. I've got about less than a year left because I split my first tour of duty as far as like sea and shore rotation, or basically like deployment duty versus non-deployment duty. Kind of like in the Army, you'd be like a recruiter or a drill instructor or whatever, or an instructor at another school or something. Same thing in the Navy. So basically you get attached to a deploying unit. That's called sea duty. Then you get attached to a non-deploying unit. That's called shore duty. So my first sea duty was split between the Reagan and the HSC 23 because I went to school in the middle. So I finish that sea duty and I was up for shore duty. So it's important. This is an important point. Non-deploying orders. Okay. I go to another squadron for helicopters called HSC 3, also in San Diego. They call it the RAG, or like the squadron that pilots go to out of flight school to get actually qualified on helicopters. So like you'll go to flight school, you'll learn how to fly, you'll learn the basics of aviation. Then to actually learn how to be a pilot of a helicopter, you go to the training squadron, which was HSC 3. Cool. I'm an E5 at this point, and going on my 5th year.
No, sorry to interrupt, but
no, you're good.
Do you have to when you become an E5 or like become an NCO, do you have to go to like a board or anything?
No, you still get it by taking the test, but there is like a training that you do, death by PowerPoint style, within your own command. So basically, like first E6s will go to E5s for a week, and you'll sit in a class, and they'll tell you like how to be an E5 or whatever, because now you're an you're an NCO basically in the Navy. So you have to learn about like fraternization and enforcing the standard and all this stuff, uniform infractions, whatever your expectations are as an E5, if that answers your question.
How much time in service have you got at this point?
I'm more than 4 years, less than 5 years.
Okay.
So yeah, so I'm going to my first shore duty, and non-deployable, and it's this training squadron. I'm there. It's all good. Like I'm there. I'm doing a good job. I'm having a good time. and I'm, enjoying it. And I'm there for like, let's see, I got there in May. In like September or October, there was this program that the Navy had called IA, or Individual Augmentee. It started in maybe like 2006, and this is 2007. So wait, let me think about this for a second. No, 2008 now. So it's May 2008. May of 2008, I transferred, and it's September 2008 now. So it's like September 2008. This IA program started in 2006. Basically, the Navy was sending people to go through training with the Army and then deploy with Army units to augment their personnel because they needed more people. So, and the Navy had too many people. So the Navy was overmanned. Army needed more people because they're split between Iraq and Afghanistan, full throttle at this point, right? A surge in both countries. And the Navy volunteered some people up. So my command, HSC-3, had a request to send somebody on this IA. And they picked a dude in my work center, another AT2 or an E5. And he's a great guy. I still talk to him to this day. But he had a wife and kids. And remember, this is non-deploying duty, right? Shore duty. So he had just come back from sea duty, deploying, just like me too. I did, 2 deployments, even though one I left early to go to school or whatever. So I did 2 deployments. That was very common in 4 years to do 2 deployments. And he did not want to go, right? He was like not interested in going. And me being single, motivated, like I was like, I'll go, send me. Like I would love to go and we knew it was to Afghanistan. So the orders come, send somebody to the Army to go to Afghanistan. I was like, I'll do it, dude. Send me. I'm fucking ready to go. And so I took that billet. And in January of 2009, I went to Camp Shelby, Mississippi to do military police training with the Army. And then in April, deployed to Afghanistan, Bagram. So that was, I go to Camp Shelby and I start to learn about the Army and, get my HUA on, and we're doing like IED lanes, crew serve weapons. The job that we were going to do was detainee ops. So we were doing detainee ops training. We were doing, combat lifesaver, it was great training, shooting all the time, doing combatives and Army combatives and doing all the lanes of training and all this stuff. And living in open bay barracks again, eating MREs, sucking it up in the cold, doing all the stuff that like in the Navy you would never get to do. It was awesome. So
did you go to that when you get to Bagram, did you go to that, or was it at JAF, where they've got like that like indoor IED lane? It's like in a big warehouse, and there's like all they have outside are like vehicles that have been blown up by IEDs. Did you go to that one?
I don't remember. I don't remember that. Well, once we got to,
I swear it was at Bagram. It could have been at JAF though. I could be completely wrong.
It could be at Bagram and we just didn't go to it, or we did go to it and I don't remember, because like so much of that's like a blur, dude. Like there's so many, I feel like I remember, but there's so many little details that I don't really like. I'm sure I've forgotten a ton of stuff. You know what I mean? So there's a very good possibility I did do that and I just don't remember, but I don't recall.
Okay. Continue.
So
what are we talking about?
So we go on this deployment, and we're going to be there throughout the rest of the year, right? So we go out there to Bagram, and I do this detainee ops deployment from April to December 2009. We're out there and working in the BTIF, the Bagram Theater Internment Facility on Bagram. It's like right in the middle of base, right near the Dragon DFAC, right near the clamshell gym and like the BX area. Just like off the cut of that is this, the main prison for all of Afghanistan. Is
that near the big shopette that's like an American, like 7-Eleven?
Yes.
The Polish compound?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So, yeah. So we would go work there, and that a lot of that job is like, I can't talk too much about like the details of that because it's like, not like NDA protected or whatever. But the gist of it was we had all these, dudes who had been rolled up by American or Afghan forces, and they bring them to the prison, and basically you are the caretaker of these detainees while they are there for their stay at the BTIF. And that was of all the deployments I did in the Navy, including subsequent, was the hardest deployment I ever did, because it's like psychologically challenging. Like you're working right in the face of terrorists who hate you, who have attacked and killed Americans every day. They're throwing piss and shit in your face on a regular basis, attacking you, spitting on you, saying how much they can't wait to kill Americans and all this stuff. And then you take care of them. You know what I mean? Like, that's the mindfuck part, is like, then you give them lunch and you give them water and you give them muffins and you take good care of them and you treat them humanely and all this stuff, which is fine. Like, I'm not saying I am against that, but you get literally shit on, and then you go like, talk to that person and give them lunch or whatever, 15 minutes later.
My boss, my fister, my FO in Afghanistan at Cop Keating, he went to Gitmo after as a prison guard, and I think he got more PTSD from being a prison guard than he did at Cop Keating. That shit jacked him up, because he would say they would throw shit and they would just be like pricks. It's like you think it's unjust that they're there, but they do nothing to give you any sort of empathy, like make you empathize with them in any sort of way. Yeah.
Well, there's no denying that there's like non-combatants who have been, rolled up by Americans.
Yeah.
Like like it happens, and there's people in there who are smart, educated, English speaking. There's a documentary, if anybody's listening to this and they want to go check this out, called Taxi Cab to the Dark Side, about Marines who beat a dude to death at the BTIF, and he was not a combatant. He was a cab driver. Like, he was a mistakenly rolled up dude who got beaten to death. And so there's like definitely a aspect of like compassion that I had for everyone who was there. Like, a part of me that realized that I don't know these people and what their story is. They were here when I got here.
Decency.
Yeah, normal human decency. But and then there were other dudes who were like, "Oh yeah, I kill Americans. I can't wait to get out of here and kill more Americans." And I'm like, "Okay, well, fuck you. Like,
right?
You're here for a reason. You're a terrorist. You live to hurt Americans and Afghanis. Like, you're a piece of shit, horrible person. Fuck you." Yeah. Like, no sympathy,
Those, the people who are legit terrorists in the Middle East, they kill more of their own people than they do us.
Oh yeah,
easily,
by scores, by the scores. And so it was it was a very mentally challenging deployment, and that's where you and I overlap, right? Because we were both there in 2009.
Yeah, I deployed a month after you did.
Yeah, So which is so crazy now that we know each other, like that, because of what happened with you guys, because I had this, the Scuttlebutt Show, and we connected, that now we can be like, talking. And I remember when Keating happened, like, I remember being on Bagram when Keating happened, and kind of like the fallout from that we felt on our end of, like, as far as, detainees getting rolled up and questioned, and seeing the, not
to make this show about me, which it isn't, but what was the atmosphere on Bagram like? Because I know what Jap was like. We actually got one of our guys who came in and replaced KIAs was at the talk in Jap at the brigade headquarters, and volunteered to come down to us. Wesley Seals, really good guy. So he knew exactly what he was getting into when he volunteered. But what was it like on Bath? Because I have no idea.
Yeah, good question. Like anything in the military, it was a lot of rumors, right? Like, a lot of
Like
not no
what kind
no,
of rumors? I'd like, yeah. What was the scuttlebutt?
yeah. So the scuttlebutt was like, okay, I'm trying to. So here's let me kind of paint the scenario a little bit, which was people knew something happened. Not everyone knew the details, but there was an army unit that had just ripped out because there was like probably fucking 7 units working at the prison at that time, and they all ripped out at different times. So there was a unit that had just ripped out uh, another. And so, we had been hearing like a base got overrun, like everyone was killed. Then obviously we saw like in Bagram, all KIAs would be moved to the flight line, and there would be a ceremony where you would stand on either side of Disney and render honors as the KIAs would come by. And I remember one day in particular, and it was I'm sure it was your guys, your soldiers, because because like like my memory is, I realize like fallible, but in the same month, right, in the same time, and all of the people in Afghanistan that were killed would come through Bagram, unless exceptions or whatever. But I just remember, and this is what I believe is the Cop Keating KIAs. That's what I remember. And we go out there to the flight line, or not to the flight line, but to Disney, and it's like an endless amount of vehicles. You know what I mean? And I remember just holding my salute and like crying because I'm like, fuck, dude, this is so many people, like one after the other, after the other, after the other. And just being like, Jesus Christ.
Did each person got their own vehicle sort of deal? How did they do it?
Yeah. Yeah. Each person is in their own vehicle, American flag, an escort, and they very slowly drive them down Disney, which is the main road on Bagram, to the flight line where they actually get on the plane that takes them home. So we would do this. I don't remember exactly. There was a name for it. And they would always say there's going to be a, honoring the fallen today at, 1830 or whatever. And Disney, it's like, I'm getting the chills thinking about it right now. For a couple miles, both sides of Disney would be filled with every person on base saluting the KIA as they would go by, the Americans as they would go by.
Did they announce that it was happening on over the PA or?
Yeah, so there would be the PA, and then there would be like, the different commands would get the brief or whatever, like, and put it out. Hey, there's going to be this. These guys are getting sent home today, so if you want to go out there, if you're able to go out there, then if you're not working or whatever, you should be out there today at 1800 or whatever, something like that.
Sidebar.
Yeah.
Okay, so I went on leave in August, September timeframe, and when we were coming back to Bagram, you remember on Disney how they had like the deep trenches on either side of the road? Do you remember that red Toyota Hilux that had tried to cut the corner and was flipped into the ditch?
No, I don't remember that.
It was down. Oh, it was on the far west side, down by the Dairy Queen and the Korean haircut shop.
Yeah, yeah. I don't remember that.
I got a picture of it somewhere. I thought this was funny as shit. Like you could tell somebody was driving at night and just cut the corner too deep, and he was just squirted into the.
I actually, on that sidebar, I actually took leave in August too. My R&R was in August, so I left at the beginning of August and I got back like the first week of September or something like that. So wouldn't it be crazy if we were like in Kuwait at the same time or something like that? Did you go through Kuwait for your R&R?
Yeah, Ali Salim.
Yeah.
You remember? You remember going into the holdover tents? Did you go in the tents or the hard buildings?
Yeah, the tents.
And you're like, okay, you get in there and you're like, oh, it's fucking freezing in here. What did you got the thermostat set to? And you look at it's 100 degrees.
Yeah. 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 And
I remember there's a big difference between 100 and 140.
Yeah. I like on that, like specifically in Kuwait, I never in my life can remember a bigger difference, even though I've like experienced this in Iraq, in Afghanistan, whatever, in training. Never, ever, ever did I have the same experience of the darkness inside the tent to the sun outside the tent. And I would like plan for 5 minutes of not being able to see after I walk out of the tent because it was just like completely blinding.
It was real hazy when I was there, like the dust.
I remember it just being sunny and hot, like at least on my way. Because when we left Afghanistan, we flew straight out. But when we came back, we went to Kuwait. So I think we went from, how does it work? We went from like Afghanistan. Dude, I don't even remember.
I had to go to Kuwait and turn in my body armor. So I turned in my weapon at Bagram. I turned my body armor in at Kuwait. Then I flew back to fucking Kuwait, got my body armor back. And it was like really like, it would look like an alien planet. Ali Asalim was freaking weird. Like it was like hazy and like not really bright, but the sun is still fucking murdering you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I describe it like, just take your wife's fucking hair dryer, turn it to maximum heat, take a handful of sand, and just blast that shit, like dump it in and blast that shit straight to your face.
That's exactly right. You're exactly right. That's exactly what it's like. So when we were there, I remember it being like really sunny. Maybe I could be wrong, but I remember it being really sunny. And we would just hang out and go to like McDonald's and then go to the gym.
There tastes weird.
Yeah. Yes.
What was up? What did they put in them burgers?
I don't know. I thought I heard it was like
mutton?
like Muslim friendly burgers or whatever, like not beef, like something else. I don't fucking remember, dude. I don't.
You remember the Sprite cans? They were like Red Bull. They were like the Nero can.
Yep. And the pop off tops over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kuwait was freaking weird.
Kuwait's weird. So yeah. So then I go back. Okay. So anyway, back. I don't want to forget because I was trying to tell you like that after Keating, that new Army unit that got there was like terrible at their job of detainee ops because these dudes were like, you're telling me a base just got overrun and we're here doing detainee ops? Fuck this. I'm not doing this shit. I want to go out there and do something else. And it was like, but nobody else really knew. Nobody knew really what was going on. Like there were rumors and we heard stuff and there was stuff going on with like the detainees about it, but nobody really knew the deal. And then these guys in the Army, this Army unit, which was a National Guard unit that came out there, they were just doing a terrible job at their job. And I was in like a senior NCO position. Even though I was an E5, I was in like an E7 role. And I remember having to tell these dudes like, look, you won't shut the fuck up about how you can't wait to go fight and like die for your country. But right now, your country is asking you to do detainee ops. You know what I mean? So I'm sorry that that's not what you want to do, but are you willing to do that? Are you ready to do that for your country? Like, this is what we've been tasked here to do. We can't go out there. We're here. Like, I need you guys to like be here and work. But I just like tensions were like extremely high with this unit that came out there because they were like, they really wanted to go do something else. Like they didn't want to be there doing detainee ops. But we needed those bodies, dude, because we were super understaffed and overworked for what we were trying to do out there to do it correctly.
I can empathize with and criticize them at the same time.
Yeah, I can too. Like they're on like some of them, their last deployment was like a combat deployment and like outside the wire doing military police stuff, training locals, whatever. And now they're here doing detainee ops. But I'm sorry that the Army's tasked you with this, but this is your job now. So like you have to come here and do it. Like that's what your country's asking you to do, you know? So it was, anyway, it all worked out in the end. There was like good dudes and like, you know, not as good dudes or whatever, but we never knew. We never heard really what happened at Keating for the whole rest of that deployment. We never got like a debrief on it or anything.
Interesting. Yeah.
So
it really, it took a good 3 or 4 years for the Army to finish its like investigations and stuff. It seems
Mm-hmm.
like.
Yeah.
Because I remember ripping out from that deployment and talking to people along the way who I would hear like some of their, you know, what they heard or some of their rumors. And I remember this, I was sitting in the smoke shack at JAP and talking to this, another E4. And he was like, he had been working for Major Porter, Melvin Porter, No Mortar Porter, our original commander when we got there. He's like, oh, he's the best officer I've ever worked for. I'm like, you know, he's a cowardly piece of shit. And like he was like literally sitting there like he was gonna fight me. Cause I'm like, no, dude, I've seen what your boy fucking does in when the shit hits the fan. Like I mean, freaking, I don't know, office guys, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
For having one deployment, man, like I have trouble relating with a lot of like shit, like our sergeant major. You know, have you watched the one with Adam Burns, the interview I did with Adam Burns?
Yep.
Where Sergeant Major was like, this dude acts real tough, like he's like, you know, something like he's been to Vietnam or something. And yeah, he got his cab at Cop Keating. We got done with the firefight. He walked out of the talk, fired his M4 into the hillside. He's like, I got my cab, you bitches, and freaking left. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I've got opinions that not a lot of other people can relate to.
Well, a lot of people had their cabs from taking IDF, you know, on Bagram or something, which was.
I heard, like, I thought you had to return fire.
Is there something else that you can get besides a cab?
If you're infantryman, you can get a combat infantryman's badge. But
would you get that?
Cab is for every other MOS.
Okay. I feel like, yeah, it's like pretty hard in the Navy to get the combat action ribbon that we have in the Navy. It's actually like extremely, I never even got mine. I never officially got a combat action ribbon. And when we talk about like Afghanistan, when I go back to Afghanistan, I'll tell you a little bit about that. But the Navy never even would give me the award, even though I have like a pile of sworn statements about me engaging the enemy and returning fire and all this stuff.
You took incoming and returned fire. If you were in the Army, you'd have got the combat action badge right there and there. Yeah,
but then in the Navy, you got to get it. You know, I'm sure it's still a 1650 or whatever in the Army to get it, but. I filed my paperwork up in the Navy and they're like, no, sorry. That's it. There was no explanation. They just didn't give it to me. And we can talk more about that.
To do it. I bet you if you asked the Army guy, the Army unit there, they would have given you an Army combat action badge.
Well, they did put me in for it. So really? It just never made it into my OMPF.
Oh, dude. Well, I got my ERB. So I got an RCOM. So me and Avalos, we got out of awards at Cop Keating. I literally, me and my boss got literally the lowest awards of the entire Cop Keating. And we also got a blanket RCOM for the deployment, and I only have one of those on my. So I actually literally got no award for Cop Keating.
So fucked up.
I've got the citation. I don't have the award.
Yeah. Yep. It's so fucked. Dude, it's the whole thing's so fucked. So
yeah, awards, like you can become real jaded real fast.
Yeah.
Because officers love sticking awards on each other, but the minute an enlisted guy does something, like you have to save an officer's life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, guys were getting bronze stars, not with V's, but bronze stars just for being E7s. Like it's the only you do the same deployment as somebody else. But because you're an E7, you get a bronze star and somebody else gets an RCOM or whatever. Like I've got 2 or 3 RCOMs and 2 or 3 Army Achievement Medals. And the same people who were just higher ranking than me were getting bronze stars. And it's just because of their rank. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you literally as a Navy guy have more Army awards than I do. And I was at the longest battle in the entire war.
Yeah, that might be true. That's how fucked the award system is.
Just from what you just said, you have more Army medals than I do.
That's so crazy, dude. Oh, yeah, dude. So that was October 2009. I redeployed December 2009 and went back to San Diego. So basically that whole year from January to December was that deployment. And then I go home to San Diego, back to my original command, but it was like different. You know, it was like I had an experience that nobody else could relate to. Like there was nobody else there who had ever been boots on ground, who had ever done anything like that, who had ever worked that much with the Army. So I was like, and I was like not getting a lot of support from my command too. I get back, they gave me a fucking bad eval, even though I got the best eval you could ever get from my unit that I was deployed with. They rejected it and gave me a bad eval because they said, well, you aren't working on helicopters. And I was like, motherfucker, you sent me. Like, someone had to go. I volunteered. And then you sent me. So what the fuck? And I was pretty pissed. Just was like partying a lot, drinking a lot, like had zero interest in working on fucking helicopters. Just like totally was not doing it for me anymore. So I had 2 years left at that command, and I spent them like basically a degenerate. Not at work, I did well. Like I excelled. I got promoted to E6 in this time. I had actually like a really high job for my rank. I was working like quality assurance or whatever, but my passion for like aviation maintenance, non-existent. I just still liked the Navy. Like I liked the military. I liked the Navy lifestyle. I was enjoying the people I worked with and all that, but it was just like nothing was kind of like meeting my expectations in the blue side Navy. Now that I had come back from a deployment doing stuff in Afghanistan, it was just like my whole perspective on everything had changed.
Yeah, that Afghanistan will do that to you.
Yeah. And it's tough because like nobody fucking, you have no, like for me, when I got back, I had no like peers to talk to. Like I had no, you know, like I was saying, no people with shared experiences. So nobody got it. Like nobody could understand what I was talking about, you know, like if I wanted to talk about it or whatever.
I know exactly what you
mean. Yeah. And yeah, I'm sure. Oh yeah, of course. You know, even probably in your command, like in your larger command, you would get back and be like,
got back from cop keating, I got treated like dumb privates.
Yeah.
By people who had 1% of our combat experience.
Yeah. Insane. So
that's why I didn't re-enlist.
Yeah. So funny you say that, because I was facing my 8-year point in the Navy, and I was like, should I stay in or get out? And I was like, okay, I'll get out. I'm going to get out and go do something else. At this point, we've got the post 9/11 GI Bill just drops, giving you BAH and all this stuff to go to college. I could get unemployment. I could do all this stuff, go get a job. So I was looking at getting out, and around this time, it like kind of, well, I ran into an old buddy of mine from HSC 23. So that last helicopter squadron that I was at, where I was a plank owner. And I was like, hey dude, what are you up to? He goes, oh, I'm working with Naval Special Warfare. And I was like, oh yeah, I kind of remember something about that. Like, what are you doing? You know? He's like, and this is at the gym. He's at the gym. He's like jacked. He's, you know, fucking crushing deadlifts or something like that, I think. And I'm like, yeah, tell me, like, what's the deal with that? And he goes, oh, if you want to know, come find me over on Coronado, on the SEAL side of the beach. Cause we were on North Island, which was like the Naval Aviation base and the Naval Air Station. And he was over on, so they called that NASNY or North Island, and Coronado was like the SEAL base or whatever, like Naval Base Coronado. So I'm like, he tells me the name of the command, Support Activity 1. And he's like, well, you know, come find me at Support Activity 1 and if you want to know more information. And I was like about a year from getting out of the Navy. I had already gotten a TAPS class. Like I had already gotten a TAPS. I was like pretty set on getting out. And I go over to Coronado, and I'm like wandering around, lost, don't know where I'm going. And I'm asking people like, anybody I see, I'm like, excuse me, do you know where Sport Activity 1 is? They're like, never heard of it. Okay, shit. So I go over to like Bud's, because you can walk like right up to Bud's. I go over to Bud's and I find some guy over there and I'm like, do you know where Sport Activity 1 is? He's like, nope, never heard of it. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not on the right base or something. So I keep wandering around. I walk around the whole base, find a building called Support Activity 1, and I go in there and they're like, can we help you? I'm at the quarterdeck. I'm like, yeah, I'm looking for my buddy. And do you know this guy? And they're like, yeah, we know him. So they call up the shop and he comes out and gets me, takes me into the shop where I would be working if I was at this command, like the drone shop or the ISR shop. And I'm like, this is where I need to be. I'm looking around at what everybody's doing, who's there. I'm looking at like these guys that are there are like athletes. They're got, long haircuts. They're joking. Like one guy walked up and shoved another guy across the room while I was in there. And I'm like, I need to get over here. Like this is where I need to be. These are like the kind of people that I get along with, And so I go back to my command, HSC3, and I fill out the paperwork. I submit a package, which is basically like your PT scores, your ASVAB score, your evals, and some like character statements or like write-ups, like recommendations from your, supervisors or whatever. And a couple months later, I get a call from that command and they're like, okay, we're going to take you. And at this time, there was only like 30 people at this command. And it was only, you had to apply. There's only like 30 people there. And
the advertiser, you kind of had to know somebody who was there.
And it's not advertised. Yeah, you got to know somebody. You got to know that this thing exists. Then you got to like meet them, do an interview, submit your package. They review the package. And then if you get approved, you get a chance to ask for the actual orders, right? So then you got to call your detailer, and your detailer has to release you to special programs. So that's like the last barrier, right? Is like the Navy has to okay it. So call the detailer, get released to special programs, go to the special programs detailer who cuts you the orders to go to Naval Special Warfare. And I go in May 2012 and I had to extend and, do all that stuff. And I go to over to Coronado and I go to Support Activity 1. And that's May 2012. So my job over there is going to be flying drones or UAVs.
Sure. I had already come and gone from the military by then. I got out in November 2011.
Yep. So yeah. I remember I'm like, so I'm over 8 years by the time I go over there. So it's been like, I'm committed through 12 years at this point, right? I've got another 4 years in front of me. So, basically out to 13 actually, because I extend, got to re-enlist and commit another. So like, basically I'm looking at 12 and a half years or something like that is the amount of time that I've got by the time I transfer to Support Activity 1. I owe 4.5 more years or whatever. So, I get over there and there's you basically have zero experience or training on what you're going to be doing, right? You are a good candidate, they believe, right? So you go over there and you start going to all these schools. So school after school after school after school. And it was awesome. Like traveling a lot, being on your own, like you're rolling by yourself from, place to place or with one or other person. We're having fun. It's like,
well,
the
like
best.
A lot of those schools, you can disappear into the paperwork.
Yes, but it's the deal with this job, was you wanted to be there. You know what I mean? Like it's volunteer. You apply. You fight for your spot. Like so I'm there for 6 months or whatever, I go to my first, batch of schools to get initially qualified, and I get put on a troop to go out on a deployment. And there was, and this is 2013 now. Okay. So Afghanistan, Iraq is shut down. There's no Iraq, right? Afghanistan is dwindling. There's a drawdown, right? This is Obama's second term, and Iraq is shut down in 2011. Afghanistan's being reduced in numbers, and the Navy canceled one of our guys' deployments, said, you guys just aren't even going. And I was on the 2 deployments after that. So like Alpha Troop didn't go, Bravo Troop goes, and I'm on like Charlie. I was actually on Delta. So I guess Bravo Troop doesn't go, Charlie Troop goes, I'm on Delta Troop. So then we had, however many guys going to Afghanistan. But when their deployment ends, they're like, we only need 2 people to go to Afghanistan. 1 chief who's like leadership, and then 1 actual like worker or whatever. And so there's this competition in our troop of like, who's going to go to Afghanistan. Some people didn't want to go. They were like, no, it's fine. We'll go to the other sites. And it was basically me and this other dude who really wanted to go to Afghanistan. And luckily I got the spot. So I get to go to Afghanistan. The other dude rolled to be the person to replace me on the next troop, so he could go to Afghanistan next time. So November 2013, I go back to Afghanistan, but this time I'm going to work with an ODA. So Green Berets. So when I get out there, it's November. We're in southeastern Afghanistan, Ghazni province, and in a city called Galan. And there was a base out there that was like this giant fob. Like during the peak of Afghanistan, it was like this giant fob called Warrior. And Shank was the supporting main base. So Shank was the big base. Then you have like Fob Ghazni, which was pretty big. And then Fob Warrior was this other like giant base. But it had been shrunk down till it became like a DSP, like a district stability mission. And it was like, we had an ODA, a team of uplift infantry. So like 25 uplift guys. There was me and my chief. Then there was a couple other like PSYOPs people, a couple like Assad A, some things here and there. And then there was FST, a forward surgical team. So we were like the golden hour site. And then that was it for Americans out there. And we were surrounded in every direction by, well, in 3 directions, there was Taliban villages. We had about a kilometer of like just empty space between us and anything else. And then to the, let me think about this. East was like our ANA, Afghan police, local militia, all that stuff, like the good zone. Then there was the MSR, and anything south of the MSR was like bad guy land. And we were out there just chilling, like by ourselves. It was awesome. Totally best deployment ever. Because being out there with an ODA, they're like, who are you? And I'm like, Max, the Navy guy. Like, you want to go on a mission? Totally. All right, cool. You're going. The ODA is super chill. So I remember in Afghanistan in 2014, talking with the Army guys, the ODA guys, and they're like talking about Iraq, and people are starting to talk about ISIS. The word ISIS is starting to be used, and nobody knows what it is. And I remember them talking about like conversations with the question, do you think we'll ever go back to Iraq? And they're like, oh yeah, dude, we're going back to Iraq soon. Like, there's no way we're not going back to Iraq. And I was like, no way, man. Obama wouldn't send people back to Iraq. Like, he just got everybody out of Iraq. He's not going to send people back to Iraq. Well, here's my dumbass. I redeploy Memorial Day weekend, 2014. I'm back for like 2 weeks, and they're like, hey, you're going to Iraq. And I'm like, fuck, okay. They're like, you need to go in. We're sending 2 people in July to Iraq. I'm like, okay, you know, I don't particularly want to go to Iraq right now, like 2 weeks after I get home from Afghanistan. But if you need somebody to go, I'll go. That's fine. And they didn't send me. They sent 2 other dudes. And then I rolled into the next troop, and I got back May 2014. I deployed to Iraq March 2015. So basically 9 months home, and we redeploy back to Iraq to Al-Assad Air Base to launch basically like an airstrike mission against ISIS. So every village and, you know, structure surrounding Al-Assad was basically, aside from one big compound that was Iraqi army, was ISIS. So we would fly ISR and go from city to city and basically support Iraqis as they cleared the city with American and coalition air support. And I remember the very first op we flew, I found these guys, like 150 ISIS fighters with ISIS flags, and they're up armored vehicles, and they're having some kind of big meeting, and they are posing for photos they're standing on top of their trucks, posing for photos. I see them taking the photos. We're all spun up in the talk, like trying to get support to drop on these guys.
If there was anything to drone strike, that was the one fuck to do.
This was the drone strike opportunity of a lifetime, or whatever, you know, GBU, whatever you got, like, you know, send it, dude, send it. Winchester, like, just destroy everything here, right? Golden opportunity. We've got the whole target package built, everything, and they denied our request for air. And that was my like, well, what the fuck are we doing here moment? You know, like, why? Now that deployment, we had like 1,000 EKIA, like 1,000 ISIS, whatever we dropped on and killed. So, and I got to go up to northern Iraq to go work with an ODA up there, where we got to go out to work with the Kurdish forces and go out to like the front line. And we were up in Erbil and like getting towards Mosul, and we got to go out there and actually like get a little bit closer to ISIS and get a little bit like out there in the mix, which was awesome. But most of that deployment, I was just on Al-Assad Air Base, and we did a lot of good stuff. So about that like strike that we didn't do, funny story about that. Later that day, we found those pictures that they were taking on Twitter. So we could find those exact same people on Twitter, hashtag ISIS, right? All you had to do was search hashtag ISIS and found those pictures. Oh man, it makes me upset. Like, I'm getting pissed just talking about it, because these were probably HVIs. You know, I'm sure that there were some out there, and we could have dropped on these dudes our very first time flying and impacted our battle space in a huge way. But we did a lot of good work out there in Iraq. Like, it was awesome. Like, Iraq was
why
awesome.
They nixed it?
No. I think it was, I don't even know. I would just be guessing. Like, maybe they had priority tasking or something like that, but they didn't let us do it. So it was unbelievable, dude. So anyway, Iraq, we made, even though from a perspective of like gunfighting was not very kinetic, but from the perspective of making an impact on the area, massive. Like, we just had a huge impact on what was going on out there at the time. and continued to push, basically shrinking ISIS into their last stand in Mosul, surrounded on all sides, east and west of the river, to clear Iraq of ISIS, with very few American casualties in the whole ISIS conflict in Iraq. And that was just like pure air power, like just American air power working, targeted strikes, blanket, destroy a city, all of that to clear a path for the Iraqis to take back the land from ISIS, at the expense of, there was some property damage. There was like there was some cities that were now just dust, entire cities, nothing left. But it was the only time in my whole career in the Navy where I can say I knew who the bad guy was. You know what I mean? Because the United States declared war against Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan 3 months after the war started. And when I think back to Afghanistan, I can't honestly tell you, even though the Taliban would have killed me and I would have killed them, I can't tell you if I think that they're the bad guy. They were our enemy, but with everything I've seen in Afghanistan, there's plenty of bad guys there. You know what I mean? Like,
politically speaking, I don't have any problem with the Taliban.
Yeah, that's their problem in their country.
Yeah, Cop Keating, we didn't fight the Taliban. We fought the Hague. It was a local warlord, and when they hit Cop Keating, it was a bunch of local, basically organized crime groups attacking us at once. And there were rumors that they had people coming from as far as Chechnya to hit us.
Yeah.
When we stopped, we captured when we captured weapons from them, we captured saws. We captured M16s with ACOGs on them. American weapons used by these people. So
well,
you tell me where all those things came from.
Yeah, no.
Did they capture M16s? How many M16s did we use in combat? Where did they get M16s with ACOGs?
Yeah. No, that's a really good point.
I've got, on a political level, I've got no problem with the Taliban. We supported them against the Soviets, but they just want control of their own country. You can, their religious and political ideology aside, it's their country.
Yeah.
So I have no problem with it. Like,
yeah, it's confusing shit, man. But that's one thing that we didn't have to worry about with ISIS. Like, ISIS was
they were like, we hate you, kill us, please.
Yeah, we are on a genocide against any non-believer who doesn't agree with us. So kill us. Like, hey, we're here, kill us. Yeah. Like, no mercy and no ethical crisis for me. Whereas in Afghanistan, if we killed a guy in Afghanistan, I'm like, fuck, man, was that like a farmer who?
Dude, okay, so we had we went to Bostic, we were building up the road, right? And we had these road construction crews, so we would hire locals to guard the construction workers, and they'd show up with their AKs. Apaches coming up from JAF. We see guys with AKs. Clear us hot. They're like, you're cleared hot. Boom. They shoot the guys we hired to guard the guys that we paid to fucking build the road. We're like, oops, here's $40,000. Sorry. Or we'd actually kill their goats or something. It was,
yeah. When I think about this all the time, dude, like, were these guys who were shooting at us farmers who took up arms because we were there? You know what I mean? And because they were told,
somebody offered them $100 to do it, dude.
Exactly. Because we were there. Because we were there, and because somebody came in and said, shoot at the Americans, here's money. We know you need this money. Now we got to kill this farmer who, shot at us. That's our enemy now. I think about this shit all the time. You know what one of the craziest experiences was for me in Afghanistan was this, because remember me telling you we were the forward surgical team, the FST, for that area? We had this time where this family had hit, because there was inter-Taliban fighting where we were at, between Pakistani Taliban, Afghani Taliban, having their own Taliban turf war. And this family had hit an IED, and this little girl had her legs blown off. Like the whole family was jacked up. And this little girl had her legs blown off, and she comes in and they're doing surgery on her. And it's like horrible, dude. It's heartbreaking shit. And the dad was like, money, money, money. I don't even care. Just give me money. Give me money. I'm like, I don't know why that is like a memory that sticks with me, is this guy whose daughter was blown apart and he just wanted candy and money.
They don't care about women over there. They really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I've literally seen a pack of 10, 12-year-old boys chasing a single girl and just throwing cow shit at her and just beating the shit out of her. And there's nothing you can do about it. Jonesy's seen a guy on the thermal on his crow system watch the lady get raped. Like just like chased down, beaten down, and raped. There's nothing you can do about it. They treat their women like animals. They treat their animals like inanimate objects. Like you really at a certain point you stop giving a shit and you just want to kill every single motherfucker you see.
It's true, dude. The animal abuse is a whole nother thing, dude. That's a whole nother story.
It's not even, you can even describe it as animal abuse.
Yeah. Crazy. It's so crazy. So anyway, this is a great segue into, I fucking come home from Iraq and I'm thinking about like, how long do I want to do this for? You know what I mean? Like going to Iraq because of ISIS was great. It was great. Like easy day, dude. We got to put in work and strike all these dudes and fuck ISIS and all this stuff. Cool. Good to go. Too easy. But how long do I want to really spend of my life fighting in the Middle East? You know what I mean? Like I've done it 3 times now, 3 deployments. I'm not even sure what the point is anymore. It's definitely not September 11th. I'll tell you that. It's this idea that if we don't do it, we'll have another 9/11. You know what I mean? If we don't do it, if we don't continue, this is like the idea that gets sold is if we don't keep fighting in the Middle East, we'll have America will never be safe. And having seen it with my own eyes,
safety is an illusion.
I don't think that that's true. Yeah, I don't even think that that's true. The illusion of safety. Well, I don't even think that that's true because most of these people, the 99% of our enemy in the Middle East doesn't give a shit about the country of America or coming there. They hate Americans, but they're more worried about Afghanistan. They're more worried about Iraq. You know what I mean? And yet terrorist groups could set up there and they could coordinate and they could recruit, train. Yeah, I get that. But does that mean that we're going to go there and like continue to level cities in the Middle East for all of time? Because we're not trying anything different. Like we're not building anything here. Nothing's getting better politically. The governments of these countries are horrible, dude. They stand no chance of victory. So where are we? So anyway, that's a whole other thing. But
what it would take to actually defeat them and like pacify the region. It's just a blood cost that nobody in the West has the balls to or willing to do. You literally have to take every male over the age of like 8 and kill them. You have to kill every male.
It's true.
And kill every male, move all the females out of the country, and just colonize it with your own people. That's the only way you can win.
Yeah.
Now, that's how war's been fought for thousands and thousands of years. We're trying to do the gentleman war. It's like we want to kill you, but we want you to not be mad about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's the whole hearts and minds thing, dude. I can, anybody listening, I can look you in the eye and tell you hearts and minds does not work. And this is the thing that people will listen to this and they might go, man, those guys sound like real pieces of shit talking like this. But if you haven't seen it with your own eyes, you don't know. You can't understand. Like, it's brutality. it's brutality in these cultures that there's no alternative that they accept.
Yeah,
other than
read back in Europe during the Dark Ages and stuff, like feudalism, and that's where the Middle East is. They've got it's it's 1,000-year-old culture with modern technology, access to modern technology, and it's a nightmare combination. Because you imagine how like a feudal lord, how he was able to tyrannize his people. How well would he be able to tyrannize his people with attack helicopters, tanks, and machine guns?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's
yeah.
what the Middle East is.
Yeah, it's true. So with all this, like all these thoughts, this like existential crisis in my mind, I come home from Iraq in 2015, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do 6 more of these deployments or whatever, just so I can get to retirement. Like, is that worth it? I start thinking, like, is just getting to 20 years worth what this is doing to my soul over here, And so I started looking at getting out. And long story short, now, for the sake of the episode here, I got out of the Navy in. I went to I basically stayed at the command that I was at for 5 years total active duty time, and the last 2 years that I was there, I spent in doing training for like new guys, and then I got out and started working as a civilian there as a contractor for 2 more years doing training for new guys. Basically, same office, same job, different clothes. And then then I ended up getting married. My wife is active duty. And so now we got stationed out here in Okinawa, Japan. And that's how I ended up here to this day.
Hell yeah.
House husband, domesticated animal over here.
Hey, I know a little bit about
that. So nice. Pinkies up. All
right, man. Well, hey, Max Bloom, appreciate it. It's been great working with you. You've been the first guy, first channel on YouTube or a lot of any of us lower enlisted guys in Red Platoon have reached out to, and I'm happy to be your first podcast interview, and thanks for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, dude, it's an honor to know you virtually, hopefully in person someday.
Yeah,
I feel lucky that we got to be each other's first. And yeah, man, anything you ever need from me, anytime, you just let me know, dude, and I got you. It's you're one of my heroes, you and Zach and Chris and everybody, and I'm glad we were able to do this, and I'm down anytime.
All right, man. Hey, appreciate it. You're a hero. No, you. All right, everybody. That was Max Bloom of the Scuttlebutt Show. Be sure to check out the Scuttlebutt Show every Sunday through Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. The Scuttlebutt Show on YouTube. If you are a veteran with an interesting story to tell, or you know someone who is, please email me at the email address in the description below. Thanks for watching.